Anime is a vast and varied medium, and if you're not already familiar, it can be daunting to find something you might be interested in watching. This is a podcast where three average anime enjoyers introduce their uninitiated co-host to their favorite anime touchstones, so he can join them deep in the Weebs. This week, we watched Wicked City. Wicked City, or Yoju Toshi, literally Supernatural Beast City, is a 1987 Japanese adult animated dark fantasy action horror film, produced by Video Art and Madhouse for Japan Home Video. Based on Blackguard, the first novel of the Wicked City series by Hideyuki Kikuchi, the film is the solo directorial debut of Yoshiaki Kawajiri. He was originally asked to direct a 35-minute OVA short film based on the novel, but Japan Home Video was so impressed with the first 15 minutes of completed animation that the runtime was extended to 80 minutes. In addition to directing, Kawajiri also served as the character designer, storyboard artist, animation director, and key animator. The story takes place towards the end of the 20th century and explores the idea that the human world secretly coexists with the demon world, with a secret police force known as the Black Guard protecting the boundary. With its confluence of gothic themes and graphic erotic violence, Wicked City is today considered a prime example of science fiction anime from Japan's bubble economy period. We watched episode all of it because even though it was intended as an OVA, it's a short movie at about 80 minutes. I would also like to note
cheated.
Yeah, I would also like to note for the listeners who might be interested in checking this one out that the movie is rated R and it's a very hard R in that it contains violence and gore, nudity, sexual content, sexual violence, and body horror. And despite being classified as horror, it's more of like an action noir style to it.
They put some decent fight scenes in there.
We're going to circle around to that and how fight scenes and horror are not necessarily synonymous.
And I would definitely say it's a strong horror for some.
Yeah, like the body horror elements definitely lean that way.
No, I know what. I think I get what Bob was trying to say.
Oh, okay.
Uh-huh.
Oh, we shall see.
Okay.
But yeah, okay, so this was one of my submissions to the list because I enjoy terrorizing my friends.
You win.
Yeah.
So I'm going to cut in here then and say, Nick, you've made a liar out of me because I said way back in the beginning of this, we were not going to subject Bob to anything terrible or, traumatizing or that, along that lines. And now you bring in something to terrorize poor Bob.
This is like a dipping your toe into what else exists in the sphere.
Oh, I get it.
A specific
As a
subgenre.
point of comparison, yeah.
Yep. I understand it.
See, I'm gonna let Nick, slide on by because I'm really not holding anyone to this. I think it was kind of funny that it happened at all. But I'm gonna go on to say, Bob, what you saw here is what we would say most people, especially in the 90s and early 2000s, like the layman, thought anime was.
Yes. And that's actually like part of why this is on here because like there is an era of anime that is exactly that. It's like mid 90s where it's just like, yeah, there is a lot of stuff that comes from, especially in terms of like the stuff that was being brought over. It was a lot of this stuff that was like, because, anime does straddle, genres. It is a medium more than it is a genre. So the idea that like, because, over here we think like, cartoons, Cartoon Network, Fred Flintstone, Scooby-Doo, Yabba Dabba Doo. Like,
Yeah, Western animation is very specifically like aimed at children. Like we culturally don't think of it as a medium, a broader medium other than children's entertainment.
I think the cutting edge with the way it's dated at this time was what The Simpsons, maybe Ren and Stimpy, maybe Beavis and Butthead, and even then, it does not hold a candle to this.
Yeah. Because like you look at this stuff and it is like, yes, there's a lot of sex in it, and that's undeniable, let's say. But again, it is, it's in horror, it's in action, like sort of very much contemporary with this is like the original Ghost in the Shell, which is, it still goes titties out, but it is not necessarily sexual, but it is high action. It is philosophical. It is a different sort of, it still fits very well in the existential dread tier. But
that is
like,
so true.
so I think at the time they were kind of leaning into that because like, yeah, there's also been, anime is there's anime for kids, there's kids cartoons from Japan, but they didn't bring that over. We were like, no, anime is this other thing. It is straight from Japan. It's not for kids. It's the other line from that famous commercial that I can't remember right now. But yeah, like they leaned into like, if we're going to bring stuff over, we are going to lean hard into the things anime can be that our cartoons aren't. So it goes into, the hyper violent, the hypersexual. We get a lot of this. So, Wicked City, Ghost in the Shell, something like Ninja Scroll is very much in the Wicked City zone.
Ninja Scroll is also on Internet Archive, by the way.
That's
Ninja
great.
Yeah.
A whole scroll of ninjas.
Don't worry, we're putting together a
Yeah.
season 2 list already.
Don't worry about it, Bob.
If it's comparable, there are certain things that can be omitted.
No.
Yeah, we'll talk about season 2 later, but I definitely think we should make it a little shorter.
Your request, Bob, has certainly been heard.
Maybe we'll. I don't think we will tier it in quite the same way. But
Yeah.
so point being is like, I wanted. I was really close between like this or Ninja Scroll, but I was like, something of this, specific subgenre. It is very touchstone of the 90s. This is extremely iconic of a very specific era that like, it's post Fist of the North Star, old heads, the it's not Super Robot, it's not, it's not the same line that G Gundam came from, but this is a style of anime that is very of its time. We really don't get much like this anymore. Like weirdly, the closest thing we got to this now was like I think it is kind of appropriate that this sits right next to Fate Zero when we were watching that, because it has that similar kind of just like, oh yeah, we're gonna show you that some terrible stuff is going on as well as whatever like political drama is going on, right? But something about when something is an OVA and not necessarily a TV series, like the balance of production values goes very strange. Like we'll get to it in my notes, but like there are moments in this where like it is not just like, shock, basically porn animation, but it's like there are some big fight scenes, there's some really nice animation, there's a lot of things going. It is some moments it is just putting like illustrations on screen that create a tone piece, and there's a lot more anime from this era that we could pull from. Listen, I didn't even bring up Dominion Tank Police and Erectakaki. Don't worry about it. Some of the primordial cat girls of anime. But
We saw
like
Aisha Clan Clan.
we saw Aisha Clan Clan, yeah. Oh, way before. We're going old school. Uni Puma and Annie Puma. It's my girls right there. God, why didn't we watch Dominion Tank Police? Dang. But yeah, like this is, if you became an anime fan of a certain era, this show is bang on. This is what anime is. It's not necessarily what anime is today, but also like you can still see how this is in anime of today. Like there's so much. And anime of today owes itself to anime of this period in a real way. So it's just like, we can't not check out some of this stuff.
Understandable.
That being said, I want to know what y'all thought.
All right. Well, we'll get to the synopsis first.
Okay.
So-
all right. Let's go to it.
All right. So here's my viewing. Our movie opens at a bar, and at that bar we are introduced to Taco.
Mhm.
He's getting paid by the bartender because they have lots of bets about Taco sleeping around. There's one last wager of the evening, which happens to be the last girl in the bar who comes out of the bathroom, and she is taking him home, which is very nice, I guess, in a weird way. However, when they leave, we see that there's another girl in the bathroom she left, just, on the ground.
Taking
Not,
a floor nap.
yeah, as one does.
Ugh. Which, like,
Uh,
I don't want to give too much away, but like this woman was sort of spider coated from moment go. Something about that hair and eyes and lipstick.
It was very unique. They go back to the girl's house and kind of speaking to the future. Uh, I have no idea how she got the knowledge of where this house was and what floor it's on and all this information, but she got it because, you know, anime.
She's an agent of a rebel faction. There's spycraft at work. She stole that woman's driver's license, I'm sure.
Well, she's certainly strong in the spycraft and in other areas because she just goes to directly being very sexually confrontational. I won't say confrontational, but she's definitely going to town. She just starts undressing and makes sure that
enthusiastically.
She gets naked
Assertive.
and then it starts talking to his genitals.
They do.
Yeah, she Monica Lewinsky's there real hard.
A little pep talk, you know.
And
which by the way, I did take note. 4 minutes and 4 seconds until tits out, and this is before the opening title card, which I think is a speed run record for all of our series here.
oh, absolutely. So we get to an, in my opinion, far too adult scene because it is not super explicit because they don't show penetration. Boy,
yeah, like it's this is like honestly something like because my personal preferences for content, like normally this sort of thing would be like, I don't want to like care about this stuff, but like the way they do it, since like they don't really show the genital part for some reason, it gives it like a different tone that I kind of don't mind as much. I don't know. It's like it's definitely not hentai because they're not like.
Yeah.
It's hard to explain because like it's not about the sex part.
I think that they play on it 1 second too long, and it's hard to explain where you can find a line there. I don't need to see that. Okay, for the record, audience, this is going to be one of our more explicit episodes compared to others. They show him releasing, or at least his bodily action is implying that, because that becomes a point later when they talk about the two worlds intertwining and certain attractions.
DNA testing, technically, I guess. Yeah, it feels weird to say that this isn't hentai, but like again, when you want to talk about, because we've played games of, what was the age of consent at the time, etc. But like especially like mid 90s in Japan, like it's like censoring laws, and especially around sexuality and stuff, they were all very.
If I recall, I think that's why a lot of like the quote unquote like weird stuff that Westerners refer to like kind of grew out of, because I imagine it was probably the censoring laws that made them had to get creative in the sexual content.
Entirely possible.
Yeah, when you think of like tentacles versus genitals or something like that. But like, yeah, like this movie is extremely tits out. I did not take a final tit count check, but like they love to have topless women, but you never actually see genitals, and there's by a very fine line that means that this is not like sexually what I keep thinking of is like it's the scene in The Matrix 3 where they're having sex during the cave rave.
The second one, yeah.
It's the second one, okay, but it's that very much thing. It's like, yes, they are obviously having sex, and we are showing them having the motions, but like nothing explicit is. It's that.
It's not shot like a porn.
Yeah, exactly. It is.
We are missing some critical steps that provide us a very thin veil between being film/artistic and then just outright porn.
Yeah, and like there are times later in this where you'd be like, "Oh, this is just porn," but like
it's porn that I wouldn't say porn, but it serves a purpose. It's for the purpose of the movie, and they aren't trying to display it as porn per se.
There's one specific shot I'm thinking of, and we'll get to it. But
yep, I think it's more. I wouldn't even say shock value, but it's almost written like that.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
It is very much about being like, yes, sex is a main theme in here, but it is not necessarily for the like eroticism of it so much as it is for the like yeah, the point is not necessarily to get the audience off, but it is to be like, this is a story that is sort of infused with sex in a very direct way, you know?
I think that's what really adds to that noir feel to it too. Even though most noir doesn't actually like have the sex scenes in it exactly, it still lends that sort of tone to it. I don't know.
Well, I can agree that this movie is not made to get people off per se, because with them completing that whole scene, our lovely lady's arms and legs kind of transform, as does her body, because, and this is where I think it's a weird line, her crotch area turns into an open spider mouth. I see. And she turns into a weird thing.
We get, like, the one shot of it is interesting too, because it's like her crotch area is completely like blacked out and it just has the mouth with the teeth in it, so like you're still not really showing it.
I'm convinced that's what those things look like. I am convinced.
Yes, that's a secret we hide from everyone.
I believe it. That being said, she fights with him. He is able to push her off, as it were, and she said, well, she got what she wanted. And, you know, as one naked spider lady does, she crawls out the window and leaves with no one batting an eye.
I just can't get over, you know, yet another piece of media setting up unrealistic standards for women's beauty. You gotta have 8-foot arms and legs with spikes on the end, and if you can't match that, then you'll never be a model.
Go ahead.
My indignation is that she only has 4 limbs. Yes! She doesn't grow another 4 limbs. I was expecting her to.
So what is your expectation for Spider-Man?
8 limbs.
I'm going to say,
which once he gets the backpack, it kind of counts. But
7
mouths. My biggest upset at the scene. I won't say biggest upset, but one thing that upset me about this was the fact that the first thing that ran through my mind, it went through the Wayback Machine and put me in again another South Park episode. Just reciting the line in my head: the Gilgamesh vagina is 3 feet wide, filled with razor sharp teeth, because that's what I'm pretty sure I saw.
Mm-hmm. No, listen, the vagina dentata is a long established tradition in literature. I'm gonna say literature.
We're stretching that word real thin, aren't we, today?
Uh-huh. Well, she did a lot of stretching too.
Anyway, I'll save us. We surprisingly, like Nick mentioned, it's now the opening. All of that, and it's now the opening. That scene was 5 minutes, and it felt, well, longer than 5 minutes, I guess.
Depends on who you ask. I'm sure he felt like it was more than 5 minutes.
And the opening is just him driving to work. When he gets to work, apparently they have this open policy where you have to tell everyone when you are being sexually active.
Yeah, just everyone knows what his deal is.
And it's crazy, and I can't figure out if he's going to work because he's a secret agent, but he sells electronics as his public face, but I think this place is the secret agent place. So we never really see him at work.
He just picks up the phone, says some business words, and then he goes to talk to his boss, who is also his secret demon agency boss.
He sells electronics. Also,
Or
he's a member of
Hitachi.
the Black Guard. Da, da, da.
Yeah, I'm gonna say this part really did make me think of like classic James Bond, just for the fact, yes, we had our intro that was 5-ish minutes. We then have the actual intro, and now we're meeting a character who has the cover job where he works for an innocuous company that I'm sure affords him the luxury of moving around in this universe without really being thought of much. And it really did feel like someone's cribbing off some notes here. And that's not necessarily a complaint. It's just something I did not expect to see in this.
Yeah, we get this sort of Clark Kent aspect to his character.
Something that disappointed me is, maybe not disappointed, but upon reflection, apparently this treaty that we learn about is not that important because his boss, while chastising him about sleeping with Black World people, uh, which sounds horrible as I say that out loud,
Demon women.
Sleeping with the literal enemy.
uh, but it's just a chastisement, and then he's giving his assignment while he is practicing golf. So is this peace treaty important or not really important? Because his boss really doesn't seem to care too much.
I mean, in the corporate world, the boss who like plays golf at all times is such a I could almost believe that's part of his cover. You know, in case somebody's watching through the windows, he's got to be playing golf while talking to a subordinate. It's a power move, you know?
Well, he passes along the word to Taco that he is going to be protecting Delegate, who is going to be the representative at the treaty. This 200-year-old man who was at the last delegation. And he is going to be there representing Earth because someone from the Black World is also going to be sending a delegate. The boss describes her as the most beautiful lady.
Well, okay. So this is also there's a lot of exposition here because it's like there is an existing treaty which has lasted for the last 50 years, but it is about to be up. So they are sending delegates to sign to have a new treaty signed, and they're like, it's weird. This one's meant to go for 500 years, so you know, whatever. And so it's like it's this this old guy who's going to be sort of the arbitrator at the peace treaty, and then Taco and this agent lady from the demon side are both just being assigned to be bodyguards to the old dude.
Thank you. You took out about a paragraph of all the stuff I was going to say.
Oh, okay, there you go. Sorry.
No, you are amazing. Keep up the good work. So we leave the scene with Taco driving to the airport to meet up with the delegate and the representative from the Black World. As he's driving, he's pulled along by a couple of people who are clearly not relevant because they have faces that we can see and expressions. You know how it goes. He gets to the airport, and for reasons I don't understand, he's walking on the airstrip.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense.
And I would be like, oh, he's going to be there when the plane's landing. No, we see that the plane doesn't come in for a little while. So he's just wandering around. Maybe he's looking for weapons or somebody who's going to take out the delegate, which wouldn't luck have it. Here comes these two people that were trailing him to beat him up, and they are from the Black World because they can, do weird tentacly things.
One has bone powers and one has squid powers.
Essentially.
It reminded me of the Thing, specifically these like the thin whippy tentacles that it has.
Something we learn in this scene is, well, it'll become relevant later on, but I'll spoil it. If Taco does not have his gun, he's going to lose the fight.
Oh, yeah.
Just straight up. He has his super duper gun, which can make things explode if they're from the Black World.
That gun
Don't ask
is
questions.
The real hero of the movie.
Pretty much. And it has a good kickback because it shows him pushing backwards into everything when he shoots it, which, yay, physics, boo. He's never damaged by it. I don't know if he has this special back pad in his suit or what.
So here it makes sense because he braces himself against a chain link fence, and with the amount that deforms, that means that took all of the energy. That's why he didn't deform, because the chain link fence did. This is simple physics 101.
But with force, the gun would go flying in the air, pushing. Anyway,
Uh-huh.
he's a very bruised man. He shoots guy A to the point where he explodes, and his head flies up until the head lands and the eyeball opens up. Taco's all excited until he gets held against the chain link fence that he was pushed against by guy number 2 with his tentacles. Where evil head comes strolling up with its tentacles, getting ready to kill him, and along comes Black World Girl with her laser fingers, who chops him up.
She's a Nanto Seiken master, just like Rei.
Yes.
She just doesn't go, whoo! She needed to do that. I'm going to re-edit this movie. I'll be back in like 10 minutes.
But the quote-unquote bad guys do call her a traitor because she is helping them out, which a lot of people do. But she doesn't care. She has a job to do. She takes him out. And she, I think, introduces herself at this point.
Yes.
She's Maki Roll.
Yes.
And she's like, hey, you're a food item too. I am here strictly for the purpose of protecting the delegate. I can tell through our conversation that you don't understand why there's a blackguard lady here, but you're just going to have to deal with it because we have a job to do. And he agrees they have a job to do. They're here to protect the delegate. So they go back to the airport, which would make sense when you're waiting for an airplane to land, but who am I to judge? They watch the plane come in and explode. And they're like, well, crap, that's the person we're supposed to protect. And they hear a whooping and a hollering from the side because, why wouldn't you know, it's Mr. Mayart, the guy that they're supposed to be protecting. Now, how to describe him visually?
Well, in his file photo, he's a tiny Dracula.
And here he is looking like a cross between Bippity and Boppity, if you know Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, Bob, I was disappointed you didn't say, like, really just worst day of his life, Master Roshi.
Oh, I have that written down, but that's his emotions. That's how he acts.
Yeah.
That's not his looks. His looks is wrinkled old man,
He's
3 foot high.
If Dracula was like Russian mafia in a velour green tracksuit, is what this dude is.
Now his actions are straight up like Roshi, and this is what I wrote down. He is easily the most disgusting character I have ever encountered.
Oh, he's the worst. But tiny old man pervert is a peak anime. Idiots. Peak anime.
He accosts Maki at every roll, especially right there at the beginning where she slaps him, and in the car where she just deals with him.
Mm-hmm.
It's in the car where Mr. Mayart kind of explains.
Well, but before we leave the airport completely,
by airport,
I do want to that fight on the runway. That is one of the points where I was definitely just thinking like, oh, this is like, does this scene make sense narratively? Not really. But like we have a cool fight scene, especially as a way to introduce, Lady Agent. But also just like the way it's shot, like it is so like color graded. There is so much blue and lights, and the one shot of Taco facing off against the two demon guys, and it's just everything is blue except for the red rim lighting on the figures. And like this is one of the points where the show was just like, okay, we just need to set a tone piece right here, and it is just playing with like color and shot composition in a way that was like technically really like skillful, and I thought was like really interesting. It's a point where it's just like, we're gonna take a minute to just be pretty, and I think they do a great job. And it it sets a tone really well. It is like it's where it takes a break to look like concept art, you know?
I do not disagree with your assessment. In that particular scene, it did look very nice and it was very fluid.
Yeah. So it's not doing it all the time, but definitely in that one is where it really stuck out most to me. So
Uh, so on the drive to where they're going, uh, Mr. Mayart explains kind of why the Blackguard, I would say females, although they never explicitly say whether there's males or females or how they even describe themselves in the Black world. But when they are with men uh, from Earth, the uh, men essentially want to keep going because the sex is that great, and the girls just want more and more semen because it tastes so good to them, as he says.
he's just like telling like the schoolyard rumors about what it's like to be with a woman, except instead of like because they're boys who have never seen like an actual woman before. It's
We're
just
going to
like
circle back to that later.
it's just like, oh, have you heard about demon women? And it's just like, all right, can we talk about anything else, please? Mr. Old Man, please, please.
Well, they fortunately take him to a safe hotel, which ticks him off to no end. Because he, of all places, does not want to be at a safe hotel until the thing occurs. Because he has a very strong sexual urge. Or as I wrote down, he has an eternal boner.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the horny old dude trope appears a lot in anime.
Like, Taco and Maki Roll just keep on telling him no. No. And they get him to the safe hotel, which conveniently the hotel owner is also Blackguard. And they cleared out the whole hotel. It's just them, Taco, Maki, and Mr. Mayard. Mr. Maillard's in his room perusing his Playboys, which I do believe he does call them Playboys, and that they aren't entertaining him enough, and he just lists off places inside of them, and he keeps getting told no. And
He's flipping through them like a yellow pages for different brothels in the area.
in fact, he gets so upset because they keep telling him no. It was to the point where he says, I just want to go. I'm not going to go to the delegation summit. I'm not going to go to the treaty signing. And I'm not going to sleep in the same room as a guy. That's just weird. And Maki's like, okay, I'll stay in the room here. Taco, you just go outside, you wait. Taco's fine with that. Not really, but he'll do it for the sake of the story. So he chills with the hotel owner, who I think really just remains unnamed.
I think so, yeah.
They're just sitting and
They do
chatting.
mention his name, I think, when he first comes in.
Possibly,
It's
don't
like
remember.
Reginald or something.
Traditional butler name.
They're sitting and chatting, saying how this hotel is protected by a psychic barrier and no one can get in, which means, of course, someone gets in.
Mm-hmm.
A superpowered Blackguarder who has the voice that can shatter.
Wait, sorry. Is this where they were playing chess?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I have one comment. When he puts down the chessboard, the kings and the queens are in the wrong places.
I did note that, but
Oh.
I mean, I recall because it's supposed to be what kings are on their color.
Yeah.
But that they don't know how to play. They're Blackguard. They protect. It was Saturn part cheesy.
It's because they drink respect women juice, as we will. The good. I can't finish a joke. I can't. So
Anyway, so an attacker sneaks in, and he can yell at certain pitches that make arms fly off.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, because we learned that our hotel owner Butler is actually a Blade Whip Butler as he does some Castlevania shit and starts whipping at this demon.
And it's entirely ineffective. And he tears off his arm, throws him to the ground, and knocks Taco against the back of the wall where his gun is essentially ineffective, knocks him out, and he goes upstairs after taking care of those two to get at Mr. Maynard. I believe the scene splits at this point, and we follow the attacker going up with Maki Roll protecting Mr. Maynard. Unfortunately, go ahead.
Nah, she tells him to hide in the bathroom, and then we do not hear from him again.
He hid very well.
Very well.
The attacker and Maki Roll happen to know each other. I don't know if they were together as rebels and she left, or they were just, schoolyard chums.
I think very specifically, I think they said that like they were exes, so they like he's basically her ex-boyfriend. Which I think is going to be like before he joined the rebels and she joined the Blackguard. I guess.
Possibly. He ends up taking advantage of Maki and forcing her down and being a bad guy.
Mm-hmm.
We switch over to Taco and the Blackguard butler, Reginald. And they both kind of wake up. Taco's like, "Are you okay?" Reginald's like, "Yeah, don't worry, it was my fake arm."
You
Okay.
got.
Sure. And Taco runs upstairs to Maki's rescue. She is able to hold him back because her hair is also prehensile. Surprise.
Yeah, demon powers. It's fine.
Yep. And he shoots the guy to explode him, kind of.
Yeah, she sets him up for the alley-oop by Taco's big cricket.
And they stop him.
Which, you know what? Good. I like when a rapist gets terrible things happen to them. You know what? Sad it happened. Great. Happy that there was comeuppance.
Agreed, 100%. They look to see what happened to Mr. Maynard since he's hiding in the bathroom, and of course he sneaks out the window, as only a pervy grandpa can.
Mm-hmm. Well, listen, a lot of bathroom windows are like extra tiny, so you have to be a tiny old pervert to fit out the window.
Yeah. He just springs up there and whoop.
Mm-hmm.
He must be agile or something. Anyway, they let headquarters know, and they're like, "Oh, you gotta find him." And Taco's like, "I think I know where he went." And we cut to Mr. Maynard with exactly where we think he went, to one of his brothels, with a weird lady who keeps calling him Grandpa.
Uh-huh.
That's a direct translation of the term that would have been used in the Japanese version.
And that must be like a very specific thing that makes Mr. Maynard happy, because there's a lot of discussion there that stuff happens. Let's just say that stuff happens.
This is the closest we get to like seeing explicit genitals, because she does like the arm pump motion, and that is like, oh, okay, I guess we have an idea of how long of a stroke is required, and it's just like, I don't want to be doing the math to understand that, please.
But she ends up being a black worlder, because while he is playing with her boob, it starts to melt over his hand. And it took that point for him. It took him for that point to realize, oh, I guess maybe you are not one of the good people. Anyway,
so this is where I realized that, like, talking about this as being in the horror genre, there is a pretty strong parallel between this and like slasher movies, because everyone who is like setting out to have sex ends up having something bad happen to them during it. Because in the opening, when he takes a woman home, she turns into a spider lady. When the guy throws himself on top of Maki, he gets choked by hair and then shot. When Grandpa goes to the soap land, the lady melts onto him and she slurps him into her. And it's just like, yeah, this keeps happening. If you want to go have sex, bad things are going to happen to you. All right. This is actually a Mormon movie secretly, I guess. I don't know.
Unless you do it in a church.
Well, yeah, that's...
Well, get there. Oh my goodness. So Maki Roll and Taco make it to the brothel. I don't know if they did process of elimination or they happened to look out on the first one. They rush in to see that Mr. Mayart is half absorbed by Paste Lady. Maki holds Paste Lady back. Taco pulls him out. And Maki Roll just, kills Paste Lady, who crumbles? Question mark?
Melts?
It's a thing. Mr. Mayhart isn't doing too well, probably because he was half absorbed into a person from another world. So they have to take him to a hospital because he's just twitching and moaning.
Well, they say like, oh, we have to get him to a hospital. It's like, no, I know a better place. We'll take him to the Psychic Research Center. You know, normal place hospital to have exist in this world.
So they're driving a distance and they're slowly transported into a... let's see, I wrote down what they exactly called it. They are caught in a world-time continuity trap. That is a thing.
They just say all sorts of words when it comes time to exhibit powers.
What that means is Taco is too foolish to realize that, oh, look, the outside is now all red. And somehow inside Mr. Mayart is secreted a little gel goo, which leaves him and transforms in the middle of the road into a large tentacle creature.
Specifically, it entered him when he was sucking on her boobs.
Oh, that's right, because he felt it swallow. That's a part of the... I'm trying to block certain things out.
I don't blame you.
So a big tentacle thing appears, and Maki Roll, it's like, I promise to protect him with my life. I can get you out of here. There's blue lightning just shooting all around, and she sacrifices herself in a scene that, if you two want to describe it, feel free. It's not my cup of tea, but they help him escape.
This is the other part that is... there's so many parts that are closest to hentai, but like this is sort of the traditional tentacle on woman sort of scene, which like normally they go much worse, but it is very much like, hey, how about some sort of meaty tentacle monster just pushes itself into her mouth, and there are listen, I just hope that this voice actress got like paid extra for this role, because she put in some work. Blech. But then yeah, luckily it doesn't last that long, because I guess she cast her lightning rod powers, and her and the tentacle get exploded by lightning as Taco with the old man in the backseat drives away.
And they make it to the hospital. They get to the hospital. They put Mr. Mayart in Luke Skywalker's bubble tank to help him heal.
Back to tank, please.
Oh, so sorry.
Life goo.
He steps outside to where they took notes from a previous show we watched, and they just teleport into the sky a message to Taco specifically about how they had captured Maki Roll. And they were doing not nice things to her with three guys. And, if he wants Maki Roll to live, all he has to do is, bring Mr. Mayart and save her.
It's this moment of, hooray, she's not dead. Oh no, she's not dead.
That is so true.
Not even bring Mr. Maynard either. It's just, hey,
No,
if
just, hey,
you
this is where she is.
yeah, if you want to save her, then you come here.
And, even though Mr. Mayart somehow miraculously heals himself enough to come out and say, no, don't go. She's a blackguard lady. You should stay me and protect me because that's what you're supposed to do. Taco goes off to save Makiro. When he gets there, he meets what I put in quotations are main baddies.
Yeah.
Hypno Girl and Big Boss. Big Boss seems very unassuming, but Hypno Girl can fling her earring and start sucking in Makiro.
In the
Not Makiro,
most
Taco.
the most Freudian technique I've ever seen.
Like, I will say it does not start with her crotch, but it's very reminiscent of Spider Girl, where her body just opens up with Taco slowly walking forward, slowly. Almost that looks like his head goes into her body.
And this is another interesting distinction because we've said previously they don't show the genitals. And they don't show her genitals, but she opens up in a very specific shape. And it's like very explicitly that shape.
And there's this constant like effect of wetness coming out of the void.
And he sticks his head in big, wet, nondescript area, but also is able to find enough self-will to pull the trigger.
Also, brief vocabulary lesson for anyone who might be wondering. You know how something is described as phallic if it resembles a penis? The corresponding adjective for a vagina is yonic.
We're an educational podcast.
I didn't know that. I can't wait to never use that. So
I cannot make a Yonic the Hedgehog t-shirt. Do not let me make Yonic the Hedgehog t-shirts.
no
You're
problem.
fired
I
if
will
you do.
stop you. So he blows up Hypno Girl 2 pieces. And main bad guy tells the 3 guys who are abusing Makiro to attack. He is able to fight them off long enough to pretty much get caught again. At which point Blue Lightning, he does fend them off.
Yeah, so my notes for here is blasting the knockback on that bad boy. Because he takes the first shot from inside of Yannick the Hypno Lady and takes her out, at which point he's back against a
cement brick wall.
A cement wall, and he fires at the 2 guys jumping at him and takes them out, and then the 2 that are working on Maki at the time, which also pinning that, they rush over to get him, he shoots them, and then we see him we cut back to him against the wall, and now there is just a Taco's ass-shaped hole in the wall, like a sideways Yamcha crater, and it's just all right, we do. He blasts all of them, and now everyone is fine except Mr. Big Boss is still standing there, being I've tricked you into my trap. I wanted you to shoot all my guys.
So they could turn into, I'm going to call it cement because I don't want to think what the white goo could be otherwise.
Yeah.
So the cement gathers up and drips down on him and gives him an armor. And he's like, go ahead, shoot me. Taco does, and it just bounces off of him. They kind of have a fight. Main baddie gets really angry because Blue Lightning comes along. Once again, Blue Lightning comes along and frees Makiro from her cage. And the main bad guy takes a diving attack at Taco, who shoots right into his open mouth. Which,
don't yell.
Credit where credit is due. That's what you should do.
Uh-huh.
The shot fortunately blows him up with him shooting weird spikes everywhere. I think at some point he gets a spike, or Taco gets a spike through his gut.
Yeah. Which, it's a good thing that his boys there melted after death and turned into his special concrete armor, because otherwise it seems like his only superpowers are spikes from the elbow, and that's just like, that's not that intimidating, my guy.
Would you call that armor his protection?
I mean,
anyway,
it did keep him rock hard.
Anyway, so Taco runs over, puts his coat over Makirol. Makirol, apparently also has the ability of healing, and heals the hole that's in his gut. Probably all the back injuries he has. And they go off to find out what's going to happen, because they both admit that they just failed at this mission.
Yeah,
So
because
they don't care.
she
They did not protect Mr. Maillard.
Yeah. Well, what is it? Like, she gave herself so that Taco could get away with him, but then Taco just abandoned a dude at the psychic research center to go save Maki, and Maki is like, "Oh, I blame myself for making you abandon your duty, so really it's my fault," because, she's getting set up as like the platonic ideal of a Japanese wife in this scenario, I guess. I again, but before we leave here, we glazed over it a little bit, but like, yeah, like when they show up, or when Taco shows up, this is the other scene where it's just like, oh, like they show that's like, yeah, they're still going at Maki in a way that really is just like, again, except for the fact that like any like explicit like genital reveals are cropped just out of frame, like it is just like, this is just like composed like shots from porn. It is so like, but again, like not in a way to arouse, but it's just like, you're not doing anything else here at the moment, I think.
Yeah, like it's just there in the background, like happening.
Oh, they I mean, it is kind of funny where it's just like, yeah, no, they're busy, but we're having a conversation. Don't look at them, you look at me. But it's like, just like when they get there and they show it, like there's like 3 shots where the camera is looking at it that way, and I'm just like, all right, it's all right. Moving on. Also, just want to point out that while they're cleaning up from the fight and getting ready to go, she mentions that the big bad was also an ex of hers at some point, because I don't know, this was the source material for Scott Pilgrim, so Taco's going to have to fight all 7 of her evil exes before they get to go to church.
That leaves an odd thought.
Uh-huh. All right, okay,
so-
that's my notes.
Makirol and Taco leave. I believe in order. They go back to the hospital psych ward, get yelled at by their bosses. And it's not even as bad of a yell at as I thought it would be. It's just, you have disappointed me, but you are just a good agent who has too big of a heart.
Well, he does
What?
say, like, you're off of the case. It's just like,
Yep.
having a big heart. That's the reason I have to strip you of your badge, but you can keep your gun. All right. That must be his personal gun from home.
After this scene, we see that Spider Girl spins her web down from the ceiling, from her butt, to see main bad guy pulling himself together as a goo. I don't know if this is to imply that he's quasi-immortal, but not really. But he's like, I'm gonna get them, wah, as only Skeletor could.
Uh-huh.
But Spider-Girl's like, I got plans. Mostly because we see Taco and Makirol driving away from the hospital like, oh, well, guess we screwed up. Yuck, yuck. And Mr. Maillard is in their back seat, saying, oh, I thought I'd go along with you guys. Which you'd think would be confusing, because just previously he said, don't go after the Blackguard girl, she's Blackguard, and now he's riding along with them.
Yeah, he was also yelling at them for abandoning him.
Interesting.
So, okay, I also got to point out here. This is the scene where basically, like, they think they're alone in the car, and they're just like, all right, now we're off the case, what do we do now? And this is where they have the little, like, their little chat with each other about like, well, yeah, I had to abandon my mission because you're a rare kind of person, and I value that much apparently. And she's like, oh, you value me that much? All right, I value you as well. And like, so this scene in particular is important to me, and it's crazy that it takes place in this movie because there's so many examples of movies where there's like a love interest that blooms through, oh, we're going through a hardship together, where we hate each other at the beginning, but then by the end, because we've been through so much rough stuff, apparently we're attracted to each other now and we are gonna stay together afterwards. But like, so many versions of that forget to actually build the relationship, and it is purely like, oh, these two are like hating each other the entire time, but by the end they can't step away from each other. Whereas in this movie, it's like we see it all along, and it just really gets like solidified in this moment. But there are like, the reason that they are a relationship is blossoming is because they are seeing traits of each other that they like admire and respect, and they are actually building like an admiration for each other, whether it's like uh talent or strength, or just like valuing people. Like, she's seeing that he values her for like her professionalism and loyalty, and she's like, oh, you are somebody who would throw this away because you don't want to see me get hurt or whatever. Like, even if it's weak, it is so much better than I feel so many other love interests through hardship relationships in movies. And I was just like, I have to give major props for this one, to being like, yeah, they are attracted to things about each other, which is why they end up together. It's not just because they went through this hard thing, but that doesn't actually make sense for the characters. So shout outs to that. I can't let that go by, because that is so rare and cool from movies to me, I guess.
For myself, from my observation, I do agree that this scene is important because it does set up a lot of stuff for being a small scene. And for me, I think Taco, or Taki, I'll give him the respect this time, finds he has developed feelings for this blackguard person, this black worlder, even though he's been shown as a player at the beginning of this movie. He's developed feelings for Taki the entire, not Taki, Mako.
Maki, yeah.
Thank you. Taki and Maki, really. Anyway.
Yeah, Taki Makie.
Maki,
he actually shows development and care and concern for this lady who happens to have a lot of traits that he admires. Especially, I think the self-sacrifice definitely cemented the deal.
Yeah.
So anyway, we
Right.
pick up here, and they're going through a tunnel to get to where they're going. I don't really know if they say where they're going because it's not a peace treaty.
They're just
driving.
They say something like, oh, pervy old man, you can't be here. We're taking you back to the hotel so you can get out of our hair, because we're off the case now, don't you know?
My guess is they were driving back to Tokyo because the Psychic Research Center, they said, was like a couple hours outside of Tokyo.
But they're going through a tunnel which slowly gets filled up with webs, and Taco, being so smart, decides, do you know how you fight webs? You drive faster and into them. Who knew they got stuck in the webbing?
Bob, I'm not entirely sure those are webs after everything we've seen in this film. But sure, we'll call it webs.
I didn't need that visual.
Yeah, let's call it webs just for our sanity.
Please, because it ends up being Spider. It's Spider Lady, who's been the secret #1 lieutenant to main bad guy. And she has captured them, and she's captured them well, because they get out of the car to attack her, just two of them. And she's like, ha ha ha, I capture you, ties them up in webbing, and just starts wailing on them.
She launches webs, but that's not where webs come from.
With spiders, it is, though. Spinnerets are in the back of spiders. They got that accurate.
That wasn't the back.
I'm trying to be positive here.
It's very
I'm
hard.
pretty positive.
I'm
So,
positive that's not where webs come from.
Yup.
So they capture Taco and Maki Roll, and Spider Girl just starts wailing on them to the point where they're knocked out.
And you know what?
And
she finds joy in her work, so that's rare to find, and I'm happy for her on that particular single bit.
And it's implied a little bit later that they, in fact, are pretty much dead.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, blue lightning appears, and Spider Lady is like, "What's going on?" And she gets electrocuted. And I have to admit, I think this is my favorite part of the movie, when she's laying on the ground, going, "What's going on?" Gets zapped again, and just starts twitching as she dies. It's like a straight up bug twitch, and I couldn't help but giggle. I don't know if I'm horrible or what.
No, like, she dies like a spider, and it's so hilarious. But also, the lightning travels down the webbing to her, and it sucks to get hit with lightning there. That has to be the worst.
I didn't know lightning conducted electricity.
Yeah, sure.
Well, why do you not see spiders build webs in storms? Psh. Everyone knows. I've never seen spider webs in outlets.
I have a theory about it, but it's all irrelevant anyway.
Yeah. I'm just writing on I'm still not sure that's actually webbing.
No, I'm just thinking I need to write a spec script for Spider-Nado. Sci-Fi Channel, call me.
You go to hell and you die with that idea. Holy shit.
Spider-Nado. Also, that's a thing. You know, okay. So there's some places where when I think it's the spring or early summer where the air is just full of spiders.
Nope.
They just rain down.
Have you not seen the end of Charlotte's Web?
Yeah, exactly.
Nope.
Anyway, we will transition on because guess what? Taco and Maki Roll still alive in a mystical floating land where they're both naked.
This is in my notes setting the scene transition, I said, "Welcome to the healing fuck plane," just like it says on the tin. Also, Jesus is here, I guess, because
when they wake up from their lovemaking, they are in fact in a church. And not just in any church, it must be Mr. Maynard's church because he's standing there watching them naked.
Yeah, you gotta get married afterwards.
This is probably his greatest dream ever.
And it's important to say, while it's part of the healing fuck plane, this is where, because they already had their sort of like soft admission of love for each other, this is where they finally have sex, which is important because when Taco showed up to the abandoned building where Maki was being held, they were one of the Yannick interrogation questions was just like, "Hey, did you sleep with her yet? You gotta tell us, otherwise it's entrapment." So
I need you to do that again with like the overly over the top Southern drawl, because that would really kind of fit what we saw.
I can't do a Southern drawl. I can't even say it. Ugh.
I would, but it would hurt too much.
However, I'm trying to remember order here. I do know that main bad guy shows up yet again in his final form to attack them, and Mr. Maynard reveals that he is actually protecting them.
Yeah, so
because they were the source of the treaty all along.
Yeah, I have this order because I actually kind of like this movie, so I remember it well. Basically, Mayor walks in and is just like, "Oh no, the big bad guy is actually hiding in the Virgin Mary statue behind you." And so, like, while he's starting to have a lightning fight, because surprise, he was the blue lightning the whole time, which actually begs a couple of questions, but we could talk about that later. So as he's fighting,
questions that are probably answered by the fact that he's psychic.
Yeah, also. And apparently was the mastermind, the real mastermind the whole time. But yes, as he's fighting these tentacles coming out of the statue, he's explaining to them that so on both sides, in the demon world and the human world, they've been working for the last couple of thousand years to find uh a pair of people, one demon and one human, who would actually be able to conceive a baby together. And it turns out that this 1,000-year go around, it's Taco and Maki who have a chance to actually conceive. Because there was a throwaway line earlier when they're talking about, like, you know, the schoolyard rumors about what it's like to be with a demon woman, where they are like, oh, it's great, you don't even have to worry about knocking them up because you can't impregnate a demon by a human. And it's just like, but secretly you two can. And so, like, the real treaty all along was going to be to create sort of a hybrid species baby if they found the people who were actually, like, had a chance to conceive one. And so he was bodyguarding them all along and trying to sort of guide them into falling for each other. And then the tentacles escape up to the roof of the church, and he goes after them, and they're just standing there going like, we were played like damn fiddles.
And good, because that's what I had typed up, and I, for some reason, didn't realize he explained everything to him during the fight.
Yeah.
But they get up to the roof, and main bad guy reveals he has super duper powers because he can absorb people into shadow.
Yeah, he
Which he
has
does.
shadow jutsus.
He absorbs Mr. Mayart and starts stabbing him repeatedly with his tentacles going through Mr. Mayart's body. You know, like super killer.
Mm-hmm.
Taco runs up there with his gun to try and knock him out, but he gets absorbed by the shadow too, because I don't know what Taco was thinking.
He gets a one shot off and disarms him.
It's so silly that Taco thinks he can do anything.
Uh-huh.
Like, he is pointless when it comes to a fight. Outside of, to be fair, during the 3-guy fight way back when, he does punch someone's head off.
That's true.
Literally.
He punched the guy so hard that he made squids come out of him.
But that being said, through this fight, both of them get absorbed into the shadow. Mr. Mayart is somehow strong enough, even though he's stabbed repeatedly and we don't see any remnants of that. He gets out of the shadow to grab main bad guy's leg and brings enough blue lightning to start shooting stuff into the sky, including the cross of the church, which goes through main bad guy's head and causes everything to explode in... Oh, no. Yes.
Yeah, pretty much.
No?
He rips his leg off, and then he, like, grapples him and does another self-lightning rod move, and also impales him on the cross at the same time.
And he dies, explodes, and they both get out of the shadow, and they're like, oh, okay, and they look over, and main bad guy is starting to absorb, turns into this weird goo monster with, I think, 2 mouths.
He's regenerating from the arm that Taco shot off, so he actually made the fight longer by trying to help.
They're like, oh, what are we going to do? And that's when Maki, standing somehow on top of a way further up steeple, is like, don't worry, I got this. And she uses a super, duper, duper laser, which surprises Ayart. He's like, she uses the power of, and once again, their words, not mine, transmogrification. To strike her down or strike main bad guy down in a display of sparkles.
She cuts him in half so hard he turns into blood rain.
Mayart gives them, hey, so we're gonna go to this peace treaty. They're like, well, okay. Well, they do explain that the transmogrification is because she's pregnant.
Being pregnant gives demon women superpowers, but only if it's a human baby. Don't ask me why. Stop asking questions. She can teleport now because she's pregnant. Just accept it.
And so they get together. They're happy. After one pump, she's already like halfway through. And they live happily ever after.
They go back to work. She's pregnant and she has to go back to work now.
I didn't know this was America.
Uh-huh.
So, this movie.
Yeah, this movie. Yeah, that's a hey, very good summation. That is succinct. It's weird to be able to watch an entire show and not just pieces of it.
That is true. We saw a beginning and an end. Are there more questions? Maybe. Are there questions throughout the entire movie? Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
I have so many questions, and it's more that there aren't answers. I almost think, do we have a final thoughts?
Sure. Why not? But actually, like, that's one of the things that I was liking. Like, it's all scrunched in at the end, but they do tie up a number of loose ends that weren't like, because like some loose ends are just sort of like
Do they?
hinting at world building. I mean, usually the loose end is just the old man did it. That's
For
why.
me, I have so many questions, but I think it's just not meant to be answered. I think it's like throwaway stuff, but I'm the type of person who has to have answers.
Sure.
It's like, why are they on the airport lane?
Yeah.
That's-
Well, it tricked me because at first
Because it's super noir to be walking through the mists in an airport.
Why is the boss so nonchalant?
Because
He's wearing a pinstripe suit.
yeah, because he's like a middle manager. He's not the head of the Blackguard. He's just like the regional supervisor to Taco.
Let me scroll through here.
He's your direct supervisor.
Go ahead. What else you got? We're ready.
Why is no one concerned that a half-naked spider lady is coming out of that room at the beginning?
They're all drunk at the time. It's closing time at the bar. Anybody who's still awake is drunk, and they're just going to blame it on that.
How did they conveniently find Mr. Mayart at the correct brothel?
Because he told them the ones he was interested in going to.
Yes, but
Okay,
that
hold
still
on. You
implies
said
multiple.
ones. Yeah.
Uh-huh. But he only named like 2 or 3, and it probably would have been the last one he mentioned.
That's still a lot
Maybe.
to get through to get to him on time.
What is the entire purpose of Reginald?
He takes care of that safe house.
But why do we care? Why is he there? To lose?
Why is Reginald?
He is literally there to lose.
Sure, but he has like a chain blade whip, and it was like a really cool
World
2 shots.
building.
Yeah,
Bob,
like,
I know,
Sure.
but it's I okay. This is a final thought. on the show.
okay, all right. Like, honestly, like when it ended and it was just like, yeah, we had to go back to work, and life moves on, and we'll see what the kid is like. Like, there's a part of me that was thinking like, I would actually love to see like the sequel TV series to this, where it was just like an episodic, these two are partners and they are having like monster of the week cases. I think that would actually be like a pretty rad show. And we get to learn more about like, okay, what does the rest of the Blackguard look like? Tell us about the Blackguard on the demon
Well,
side. Tell us
It's
about
based on a book.
Oh, I don't like to read though. Maybe I'll have to read it.
Also, another interesting thing I wanted to bring up is when they brought it over to the West. Streamline Pictures was the one who brought it over to the West, and they did the general release dub. But Manga UK did their own specific dub for it. Because the version they released in the UK was more censored, although apparently their dub has more profanity in it. I don't know.
That sounds appropriately British.
Yeah. So we watched the one that's on Tubi. The
I
version.
was Amazon.
Same.
Oh, okay. I'm curious if it's the same one. They probably have the general release one. But the version I found on Internet Archive is the other dub. So now I'm curious to go watch that, and it's like it's not even the same lines or anything. Like it's completely different words and stuff. So
yeah, and that's actually one of the points that I wanted to bring up, because like the other thing about this era of anime is like, and we were talking a little bit about this before we started recording, just about like in modern anime there is a tendency to lean more into like more literal and direct translations, which is which actually gets away from localization, even though localization is a process of like making a story that is more like a script that is more like natural to the target language versus something that ends up feeling like, machine translated, which might be direct and accurate, but it's not like a good product in the end. But this is where we started. This was the far other end. This was from a time where they were like, oh, we have the license to this thing. We don't know anything. Sometimes they would just write a brand new script. Like, so, okay, when here I got a couple of lines that I noted about that are just there is a certain charm to when the voice actors are being directed by people who just do not give a damn and they have fun with it. And that is a charm that I love from the dubs of this era. Like, most people would be like, oh, these are terrible dubs. They mistranslate, they skip stuff, they change stories. It's like, yeah, but they're fun. There's like a fun to the line deliveries that we don't get anymore. Did y'all have on the Amazon version, at the very end, when the old man is walking past the two of them out of the church because Taco is struggling to say he loves Maki, and he just walks past and says something about like, I don't know, I'm trying to get to the Ding Dang barbecue and these two chickens just keep talking about the, like, he says something ridiculous. The only word I picked up was barbecue, and I'm just like, yeah, that is not, a direct translation, but it's fun.
Yeah, he was saying how he got roasted like a goddamn barbecue chicken, and these two are just standing around.
I don't recall the exact phraseology, but I do recall something like that.
I couldn't tell you.
For me to borrow from what you guys are saying, I think the closest that I can remember is at the beginning when Spider Lady is talking to his genitals, and he has an internal monologue. Oh wow, yeah. This girl has been here doing this all this long, and she's just so whatever. Like, I forget the exact wording.
Not what I expected, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, it's so off the cuff almost.
Yeah, that internal monologue is also in my notes. There's also just a when they're picking up the old man at the airport, it's just like, oh, are you two the bodyguards who are supposed to be here for me? And Taco just goes, yeah. It's just like, it feels so natural. Like, it would be tongue-in-cheek if they knew what they were like spoofing off of, but it's just like, yeah, they just did it, and they did what felt natural. And like, is it honest to the original? No, not necessarily. Does it have its own charm and sort of natural feel to it? Yeah, it's great.
I don't disagree. It if we're looking at it from that piece, yes.
But yeah, I feel like everybody's on the whole feelings are gonna be opposite to this.
We will see. We are not there yet, or are we there?
I think
Bob goes first.
Yeah, I think we're there.
All right. On the whole, this is a movie to me that it's two movies, because for me, like you described that one scene very elegantly. It has great color, great character. The fight was not bad, and when they are fighting the main bad guy, that is great. Be more my style of show. That being said, overall, I think there is just too much. Like, too much adult. Sometimes I felt like they were going to shock value to make it horror. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Like, we were saying this is so, like,
for my taste.
Yeah. It's so soft hentai that it's just like, most of the time it feels like, who are you kidding? Just show the sex,
If they but the hard part is to omit that would also be a disservice to the movie.
Yeah.
When Maki sacrifices herself, did they have to do the scene that they decided to do for her instead of just like stabbing her with stalagmites? Or Mr. Mayart. I don't think you really could have done Mr. Mayart any other way for that character to be that character.
Yeah. But like if it was
But
just him, but like yeah, there are so many scenes of assault that they just tweak the knob and turn it into sexual assault that don't
that
feel
seems
good.
like that step passed. And that makes it hard for me to 100% like this movie. Do I think it's a bad movie? I've seen worse. But the hard part is the discomfort I felt from certain scenes. I don't know if that's what the uh, artist or the author was trying to go for. If that's what they were going for, they absolutely succeeded because I was discomforted by a lot of the scenes.
Yeah, I'm not actually sure. Like I there's definitely elements that like I think it was like a Japanese culture thing, especially at the time, where it's just like, oh yeah, we working sexuality into things that didn't necessarily need them to be like, well, you gotta scratch that itch somewhere, because I think, straight up pornography had much stricter controls and limitations around them, which is why everything else got so much more sexuality and either implied or like so up against the line. But yeah, like coming from our sensibilities or something like that, it's just like, yeah, this just makes it feel gross.
The definition of horror is an intense feeling of fear, shock, or disgust.
Yeah.
And I think that this movie did succeed in that. And it's not meant as an insult per se, because if that was the intent of the movie, while going into it, hopefully you have an idea of roundabout what you're going to be getting into. And I'm not saying you have to be a sexual deviant to enjoy this movie by any sense. But if that's the type of horror you're into, then this is absolutely the movie for you. Is it my cup of tea? No. But I'm not going to dismiss someone else's enjoyment over certain horrors that I just don't have.
Yeah. And like oh, like I was saying at the beginning, like that sort of discomfort, I don't think it was necessarily I don't think that level of discomfort is in there as an intent to be something horror, because there are, again, lots of shows from the era that have that same sort of unnecessary over sexualization. But that is, again, part of why I thought this was a touchstone to get to, because like, yes, there is a history of anime of just, you have to know that like, yeah, this sort of discomfort is going to be there, and you can absolutely look at that and see it in so many of the other shows that we have watched, like when we were watching Magus Bride, there's like softer, shallower, but a lot of that discomfort is in there. When we look at how Ron was treated in Gurren Lagann, there is that element of like, oh, a sex pest. There's this like overt sexuality there that is stronger than it needs to be and leads to some discomfort for us. Like there are some shows that handle it with a certain elegance, but there's more shows than that where it's just like, yeah, there's just some sex stuff in here and makes us all sit around and go like, did you have to? And the answer is really no, but it's there anyway. And that's just anime. Like that is, even outside of this era, to understand what anime is to understand that that specific discomfort is pretty ever present.
To sum up, just because I don't like metal doesn't mean that metal doesn't exist and that there's not people who don't enjoy it. That is my thoughts on this movie.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't expect everyone to be like, woo, yeah, this movie. It's just like, yeah, no, you gotta understand, this is anime history right here. So like honestly, I think I do earnestly enjoy this movie, like not because it has so much rapiness in it, but like I don't know. I think part of me is because like I have like learned things about myself regarding like asexuality and just sort of like how I relate to that sort of stuff, and the idea of, you know, that discomfort prompts me in a way that I feel led to, you know, a growth in understanding myself, so I look back fondly on it. Um but also, you know, like I said, there is sort of the tone piece element, there's the action, there's the 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 way that they model this relationship that they have in a way that like you don't see often in movies. And to point out that this is an anime movie, it started as an OVA, and a thing about OVAs is that they are often meant to be sort of um a project to dump money into to show off in a lot of times. Like sometimes it's like, oh, we're going to give this to like a new director and we'll see what they're made of. We're not giving them a full show, we're not giving them a full movie, we're giving them an OVA. Sometimes it's to be like, hey, you know, Canon cameras, this got a check and they put their name on something cool, so we're going to put all this money in to make something cool. And I think that's where a lot of the like best parts of this come in, where it's just like, oh yeah, we do have this like moments of cool action, these moments of tone, the fact that, you know, they thought it was cool enough that they went from like, you know, a 20-minute animation to an hour and a half animation movie. So like I think there's an element of that in there, which is why like, which almost like makes it more tearing to come up with your piece, your feelings on this, because it's just like, oh, they went kind of ham on this while also throwing in all of this sort of discomforting stuff, you know. But I think for me overall, I am not discomforted enough to not overall enjoy it. But that is very me and my personal taste. So Chuck, how you feeling over there in the corner?
I don't know if I'm in the corner, but I'll just say I've been over here definitely. I've got 12 specific notes on this, and they're all more or less circling the same drain. Um, I'm trying to really parse this down, so I'm going to start with. I'm going to try and find the most civil ones I have.
Okay.
Starting with, this is wannabe noir edgelordism. I
Hmm.
this it has all the trappings of noir, but it just goes so unnecessarily hard to tell this story. There is nothing about this story that had to go this way. It's it reminds me of being in high school or even middle school, and this is what I think most kids that age thought the word mature meant.
Sure.
And it's like, oh, it's got to have a lot of sex and violence. Like, okay, those are definitely aspects of the mature world, but not all of them. And I gotta say, as I mentioned, there's some things I want to circle back on. The establishing of the relationships in this. This film confuses romance with horny.
Hmm.
Their relationships are honestly just as paper thin as any James Bond relationship.
Sure.
I can't even say they did it well. If they're doing it well, then so is James Bond, and they are not doing it well in James Bond. I I'll be honest. This has every kind of stereotype I hate that
Oh.
exists about anime.
Okay.
Everything. This is everything I would call like the lowest common denominator. Like I see what it's trying to do, but I look at it and I look at and all I see is like and I realize these came out afterwards, but essentially this is if someone took Yu Yu Hakusho, John Wick, and The Fifth Element, threw them in a blender, and didn't really know what they were coming out with. And I'm saying that as judging the piece as it is as a whole, as a narrative, as a story. Are there bits in the artwork that are good? Yes. That are well done? Absolutely. Lighting choices, great. But I cannot divorce that enough from just the way this made me feel. I had very differing opinions than most about Gurren Lagann,
Mhm.
but I can at least see why people like it. I And I can acknowledge that and say, I'm glad this exists for them because they got enjoyment out of it. Everyone should get enjoyment out of this. I can't bring myself to feel that way about this. I honestly, I have never so badly in anything we've watched wanted to just change it. I found myself actively trying to change a channel at one point, and the TV I was watching this on does not have actual cable. It's just a giant internet streaming box, so that wasn't happening. I'm not gonna lie. Like the first words that came into my mind after not even 10 minutes in were and I put them in here: juvenile, purient, puerile, and feckless. Like I have nothing positive to say about this. I'm not gonna lie, and I have spent all this time trying to find anything, and the closest I can come up with is, well, thank God anime isn't this 100% of the time anymore. That is the closest I can come as a touchstone to say this is our Neanderthal. Boy, aren't we glad evolution happened.
Sure.
That is the closest I can come, and I feel bad because I at least try to find something I can say, hey, I get it, and I look at this as like I can't find anything to say I get it, because again I look at this as like all I can think is like kids sitting in the corner of their high schools thinking they know everything about the world and wearing black. And this is coming from someone who enjoys wearing the color black a lot, even back then. But just sitting there and grumbling about how no one gets it and their pain is so unique to them. That's all this makes me think of looking at that. It's like, I get it, To that high school kid, I get it, man. Being a teen is hard. But this movie, I was like, you could do yourself 100,000 times over better with anything else. There is a word for a type of film, and I keep coming up with the word smut, and I know that's not it. And I believe it starts with an S, and it's driving me insane because I can't think of the word, but I know I just heard it not terribly long ago. But this is what that is. It's that to me. I was like, I am not a high class person by any means. Bob will tell you that. But this movie has no class. It is the lowest common denominator as far as I can say. And I hate saying that because it feels like I'm attacking someone when I say it. And I don't want that to be the case. I am attacking the film.
No, I completely see where you're coming from. And I think it is fair in a lot of ways.
Like, I tried because I'll admit, I knew going into this, like, there's going to be a lot of things I'm not going to like about this. But there have been a lot of things I've watched that, like, I know there's not going to be things I don't like about it, but maybe there's usually something. And I feel as though I have failed in my openness to new things, to things outside of my normal wheelhouse, to find anything I can find redeemable about this.
Well, I mean, like I said, part of the reason I put it on the list, part of the reason why we have an existential crisis tier is because, the idea that, like, yeah, there are some things that are anime that we're going to throw in here that, like, the fun in them is inflicting them on people, not necessarily anything about itself, and
boy, oh boy, do I have a surprise when we do After Dark.
Listen, I cannot wait. I'd love to have bad shows inflicted on me in this sort of way, like that's like, this is maybe like a different way in which we approach media. I love a good bad movie.
I do like a good bad movie. I just don't like a bad movie.
Sure. And like, I feel like a lot of what you're saying is fair because, you were saying that this is not a noir. It is like playing at noir, but even making comparisons to like a Bond book specifically, like, like I was saying, this was an OVA. This was meant to be like, it was kind of meant to be shallowly impressive, but ultimately consumable. This was not trying to be groundbreaking. It is meant to just be something that, tracks, you see it, and then you move on. Like there is that sort of pulpy aspect to this that we just watched. Like that's part of why they were so integral to the American anime experience, because pulp stuff is going to be cheap to license. That's how they brought it over. That's why these were the things brought over, you know?
And that's fair. I just even to that point though, I feel like I've seen other OVAs that were also not trying to be, the next big thing. We're just trying to get out there, that just handled themselves better.
Sure, absolutely. But like, and that's the weird thing about OVAs. They can be a lot of different things. But like, that's, that was the thing here. Is not necessarily, this is a touchstone because it's good. It is a touchstone because it was kind of cheap garbage, and it's really just a matter of just like, yeah, we came from this, didn't we? More than we're here to enjoy, it makes total sense to me that this is just like not something enjoyable here. And like, yeah, I get it. That that makes a lot of sense.
I'll just add one thing in though, and this is gonna sound so weird. We gotta eventually bust out a list for phrases I never thought I'd say in my life.
Okay.
This made me want to watch modern isekai.
Wow.
Yeah, because so I'm gonna alienate as many viewers as I can, I guess, in this episode.
Great, let's do it.
I think that is the lowest common denominator of modern anime.
Sure.
Period. It just and fight me IRL, I guess, if you wanna. I'm willing to have an insightful discussion about it and explain why. Because I will stand by, the greatest isekai I can readily think of was honestly Vision of Escaflowne.
Sure.
Modern isekai is copy paste cookie cutter BS. Looks at the Marvel universe or Marvel Cinematic Universe, and like this made me think, like, you know what? At least it has a pretty and vibrant color palette. And again, never thought I'd say anything nice about modern isekai. There it was, like, it's got a nice color palette, and both of these are power fantasies. But at least that, it feels like the isekais are really owning it.
Yeah, but like I again, I think that's totally fair, because yes, you want to talk about consumable pulp of, like, the last nearly decade. It's been isekais. Absolutely. Like that I think that is absolutely fair to be like, isekai is the Wicked City of the 2020s. Oh, that did feel weird to say, but I don't think it's wrong.
No, you're not wrong at all saying that, because I am aware of some I refuse to watch because of what I have heard in passing about them, that essentially try to actually be Wicked City in their own way in the isekai. But most, like I said, most isekai are just pretty generally puerile nonsense, but they're not that think there's something more, but they don't go this hard. And I think it's that combination for me that's like, it just goes so much extra hard on the edgelord aspect of, like, like I said, it is everything I think of when I think of that moody, edgy kid that you knew in high school.
I wonder if there's an element of it where, like, the modern tools we have for producing anime series meant that, like, the idea, because like today you will get, we have a lot of isekai shows, whereas back in the day I think there were more OVA and movies produced because they were like for the same budget. Now you can make something longer and prettier, or at least cleaner, for the same budget as we were getting back then. So the idea of just like, yeah, like today's pulp is a little more flat pulpy, because like,
I could see that,
but in a way where, like, because back then it's just like, okay, we have to take what we want to do and cram it into such a small space, that like maybe that is part of why it goes harder, and going harder into the sex of it, into the noir of it, into, that's part of why it makes it feel more edgelordy, is because, like, yeah, you had to make a much more concentrated experience. I wonder if that's,
I could see that being the case,
because if you took this movie and stretched it out over even like 6 episodes, like, and you gave things I don't know, maybe more time to breathe, more time to elaborate on some things. You gave it less, it was just less concentrated. I don't know if it would feel less edgelordy, but it would at least be like more diluted,
That's
I
possible.
wonder how much that would affect it, but like that's also part of the beauty of it. Like, yes, it's like edgelordy, but I think that's part of why it is laughable. That is part of what makes it something, to inflict on friends, is because there is that just like, oh my god, can you believe how hard they're going with this? And it's just like, yeah, it's terrible. I love it. And it's something you can only really appreciate from that meta level of like anime enjoying. Maybe like if you try to enjoy it as a show, like, oh yeah, no, that's not how that works. Which and like for the way that I know you to sort of like what you like to get out of a show and like where your enjoyment comes from, I'm not surprised there's nothing for you in this show. That is not a twist. That is not. I absolutely get it, but it's like I said, this was not necessarily on the list to enjoy. This was on the list to sort of like historically appreciate.
Fair. For that. Okay, so here is a positive I can say. For that aspect, I can appreciate it being on the list as a historical artifact of what it was to be anime back then. To try and get as you put it, a condensed experience.
Okay, yeah, that counts.
Yeah,
we'll take it.
I'll give it that because, like I said, I'm not looking to just come over here and take a dump on yucking someone's yum, but at the same time, it's like I was struggling. So like for that viewpoint, okay, I will concede that, and at least there's the historical value. It's not to real world it too much, but it's when someone tries to censor out certain words and books written in from the 1800s, it's like you need to leave those in there because it's an artifact of its time.
Yeah, I think this is like I think you could almost look at it that way, that like this being a show that you inflict, this being the sort of quote unquote good bad movie, that is sort of the warning label at the front of this is an artifact of its time. It won't appeal to your modern senses. Like there's I think there's like a soft 1-to-1 there.
Now I just have to get my teaching degree and start saying, okay, kids, so this is literature 101. We're going to read Grapes of Wrath, and now we're going to watch
Wicked City. Yes, absolutely.
You understand, these are periods and points in our history, products of them, and you will learn to understand why we're glad for progress.
What's that? I'm fired? I understand. Peace out.
That was the correct decision. Goodbye.
Here's what I'll say. For season 2, as we start putting that list together, I will put on Dominion Tank Police, which is similar to this. I will also put on some good OVAs. Like Pat Labor is really good. Tenchi Muyo, it was originally an OVA, which we actually just rewatched that for anime night, and that holds up really well. That's really enjoyable.
Yes, it is. I may or may not have an amount of that.
Okay, there we go. Joe, any final thoughts, or have we covered everything?
I pretty much covered everything. I enjoyed it. It's fine. Honestly, the thing that like I most dislike about it is just the general sense of a woman filling her potential is by getting pregnant. But that's like a sentiment that's in so much media that I can kind of put that aside to experience a show or whatever. But yeah, no. Other than that, I enjoyed it.
I want to second that. That was in my list of things.
That does suck, but she looks so good in that suit. Okay. Can we put this on any lists? Does this go anywhere?
There were so there were songs.
There was music.
There certainly was a soundtrack that happened.
There was a credit song, and there was that song that played while they were driving the car in the middle.
I can tell you, I only listened to the song that they played in the middle once the credit hits. Okay.
You bailed out, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't know. I would consider the credit song a closing theme, so I guess the other one counts as the opening theme if we want to do that one.
Sure.
Let's see here. Opening quote unquote theme.
Yeah, the beat It's
we'll-
Not Easy by Hitomi Toyama.
We will put at, boy, is it so forgettable.
Yeah, it's like general 80s pop.
Let's ask the real question, Bob. Does it go beneath 31?
No, it will never go beneath 31. We will put it at 30. Sorry, Imagine Dragons, but you yelling constantly does not make you a good singer.
I'm just waiting for the time something does get to Bob that much.
All right, it is.
No. He said 31.
Oh, I heard 30.
No.
So below Genkutsuo.
Below. Hey, do we remember why Genkutsuo has an asterisk on it?
I do
At
not.
this particular moment, no.
All right, great. That's.
Was it a spelling, maybe?
Hey, if anybody's been doing an archive crawl and just listened to that episode, please leave in the comments below what that's about.
There were no androids, only demons. Although lots of things were ridden, there were no horses.
The Reginald Combat Butler had a artificial arm of some sorts. We don't know the extent of that.
Since it wasn't pursued fuller, I'm going to Supreme Court this and say, doesn't count.
Okay.
Yeah, he said that, he got the artificial one, which means that the other one isn't.
You know what? Yeah, fair
That's
enough.
as much as I can deduce from that.
Okay, I love this detective work.
And since it's not cyborg, android is completely different type of life form.
Okay. Are any of the non-human creatures we saw akin to horse?
Does spider count as horse?
It only
she is definitely ridden.
It had 4 long legs.
We're not counting her as a horse.
I mean, I don't want to, but I figure at least, to be fair, warranted being said.
The big tentacle monster that wrapped up Maki in the middle of the road had a long tongue just like a horse.
Sorry, what?
No.
I'm gonna hold on. Let me get my Supreme Court robes back on.
Even I must pass on that one.
Okay,
I'm down for a good joke.
I'm just asking the questions here. Oh no, I'm on a podcast just asking questions.
I was
become what I
afraid you were going
hate.
to try and suggest it as a flying pussyfoot. That was
Horse
better.
tongues aren't even that long.
Yeah, I think you're thinking of giraffe.
Yeah.
Now, when he shot the Yannick lady from inside, she did get blasted off her feet and fly through the air?
No.
No,
Okay.
for many reasons of no.
I'm just making sure
If
we
you say
explore
asking
options.
questions.
This movie does not qualify for any of the other rankings.
Fantastic. Okay. We're being thorough.
I mean, I appreciate that, but this is one of those, I think we're okay. So you just, no buttoning a lot of these out of just common sense.
Just one big rejected stamp over everything.
Okay. Hang on. I'm creating a new list.
God damn it.
What? No, this is fine. The list is no with a period. And ranking number 1 is Wicked City from Wicked City.
Oh, I thought you were just going to put, creatures from Wicked City.
No, the list is just no. Number 1, Wicked
Fair.
City from Wicked City. Now, do we need to look back and put anything else on our no list?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
I would say,
No.
if it makes Nick feel less alone, I'm willing to throw Fate under there.
I mean, just specifically the girl in the worm pit from Fate Zero, I feel.
I mean, that's enough. Based on certain reactions, I'm willing to accept that's enough to throw the whole damn series under there. I really am.
Yeah.
I'm willing to be that benevolent.
But Alexander the Great was there, and he was pretty good.
Yeah, Skander's just the best himbo.
It is either way. It's going to rank under.
Fun fact: Iskander's Master gets his own spin-off series, where he's just trying to get Iskander back.
Oh, great. Okay, that's going to do it. So now we have
Oh, wait, I have one more question that I just thought of.
Great. What's up?
For all of you, did it seem to you as though the person doing the old geezer's voice was doing it by holding his nose while he did it?
A little
If-
bit. I could see that.
Like
If
there were
so,
a couple deliveries where it just to me sounded like exactly like someone holding their nose and doing a voice.
so I will say, if so, I'm not saying he didn't. I can believe that, but if so, I know that voice actor from other roles. He does it for all the other roles he does with that voice.
Yeah, I was gonna say like in this era of anime, especially, there are like 4 voice actors,
Yeah.
and they're just everything.
Like there's the old pirate in that when they're hunting down the gold on this water planet in Outlaw Star, he does the voice of that. Like I know you from somewhere.
I could hear him scrunching up his face so that his sinuses got constricted. I don't know if it was full on nose holding though.
Not to alienate our New Jersey audience, but I could actually just believe that's his voice if he's from New Jersey or Boston.
So, we have 2 shows left on our entire list. And now Bob gets to pick what we're watching next week. Our
Okay.
2 taglines to
Just
select
2.
from is They're All Dead Again! Or Took 'em Out with One Blow. Yep, one blow, all it took.
We're all dead again.
All right. Congratulations, Bob. Next week we'll be watching MD Geist.
MD Geist.
Well-
This is also an OVA.
Oh,
So,
okay.
Alrighty.
I want to say it's like 2 45-minute OVAs, so we're just going to have this again, but there will be an intermission. I am so excited. I am so excited. I'll Chuck, I'm sorry ahead of time, but I'm
Uh-oh.
very excited.
I know nothing about this one, so now I'm really concerned.
So,
I just have one question because I think this is one series that I mix up with another series.
Mhm.
Is this the one where he comes back from the moon?
he was in a satellite prison.
Yes. Okay, so it is the one I'm thinking of.
Yes.
Okay.
Carry
on.
Fly him to the moon.
I will say, the way I recall, this is very minimal on the rapiness.
Oh boy.
Improvement.
I hope it's non-existent, but I do believe MD Geist is one of the best asexual representations in anime, and you'll see what I mean in the exact one scene where it matters.
The fact that there's the qualification of minimal tells me there's still a non-zero amount.
It is of the era,
anime from the 80s.
and it's been so long since I've watched it, I honestly don't remember fully.
Okay. I will accept that as a reason for saying that. Have I ever told you I hate the 80s for the most part?
I like the,
We-
I like
we
the
are
music,
80s
that's about
babies.
it.
I know we are, Bob, but that doesn't mean I love it.
Only 80s kids will regret it.
Yeah, we're technically 90s kids because we were born in 89.
No, you still got that 80s stamp on you.
Yeah, like no, we're technically from the 80s, but we're like
Your memories are stronger in the
I don't
90s.
remember
Yeah,
the
sure.
3 months I spent in the 80s. So
Your memory provides you no presumed innocence.
An 80s vintage. Okay, well, with our ages now pleasantly doxed, we are going to call it for today's episode. Looking forward to more of the existential crisis tier next time. We hope you all join us, and until then, don't watch anime.
Don't watch that anime.
Deep in the Weebs is a show by Chuck, Nick, Joe, and Bob. Our theme music is Kawaii Friends by C. 3. You can find our show on YouTube, or subscribe to the audio-only version on iTunes or wherever podcasts are served.
How's everybody doing? Does anybody need any sort of aftercare?
I'm just curious if Pat Labor is going to be the new person hosting the Wheel of Fortune.
Probably.